Hey everyone, so it's Hearth and welcome back to my channel. So in today's video we are going to be talking all about doll magic. So dolls are one of the earliest forms of physical magic that has ever been discovered. These dolls sometimes date back to around 40,000 years ago. They're found in almost every culture around the world and they're often referred to by different names. Now within European magic, the term used to describe these dolls is poppet. Now this originates back to the Old English word poppet with one P that meant a small child or doll. But that then originates back to the Latin pupa, which means baby girl. So the term for doll within European magic really does go back a long way. But these dolls have a huge range of different names from all around the world. They're also known as effigies, fetishes, doll babies, and also sometimes the dreaded voodoo doll. Now before we get started, I do want to say very clearly here that voodoo doll is not a particularly accurate term. I hear a lot of people using this term on a regular basis and it just isn't accurate. So voodoo is a closed religion. It's an initiatory religion and you need to go through an initiation in order to practice it. And within voodoo, and the people that practice voodoo that I've spoken to don't actually refer to any dolls that they use as voodoo dolls. The term voodoo doll actually came more from media and movies than it did from actual practice. The premise of voodoo workers stabbing pins into dolls almost entirely stems from a bad reputation created in media, on social media, and with movies and television shows. So the term voodoo doll is not one that I personally would ever use to describe these dolls. Instead, for the rest of this video, I'm going to be referring to these dolls as either poppets or doll babies, as that is what they are most commonly referred to as. So dolls are part of a type of magic called sympathetic magic. It's also known as representational magic. The idea being that you are representing a person or an animal in a working. So these dolls are often used to either represent yourself or another person. They can also be used to represent animals, and they can also be used to connect with deities and spirits, depending on the intention when creating a doll. Now it doesn't have to just be to represent yourself, it can be to represent another person, and so they are often very frequently used in remote magics. So if you want to undertake a magical working on a person that isn't around, oftentimes a doll will be used in representation for them. Now this can also be done with animals. If you can't physically be around an animal when you're doing a working for them, you can use their representation in the form of a doll in their shape. Now dolls come in lots and lots of different varieties. You can make your own dolls, you can buy your own dolls. I have two types of dolls here. Now these are fabric dolls. It's just one of the many different varieties, but fabric dolls are the most popular to find. So these are the ones we make in store ourselves. We make them to suit a practitioner's desires. So we have lots and lots and lots of different colours. So we do them in orange, we do them in green, we do them in black, we do them in red, pink, white, whatever colour you can think of, we can make them in. And we do this to give people a lot of options. So these are one of the most popular forms of doll. They are what's known as a gingerbread man doll. Now these can be decorated further to suit the person that you're creating the doll for, or they can be used as is. Now you can get dolls like this that are made for just a generic person, so you then add in the items that represent the person, or you can make fabric dolls out of clothing or objects that the person used. So if you have an old jumper, a t-shirt, a pillowcase, something like that that they have used, you can then use that to make the body of the doll out of, to add a little bit of extra connection between the doll and the person. Now another form of dolls are ones that are pre-stuffed. This little guy over here with the flappy little arms is actually a store-bought little dolly. These are designed to be used to make kids' toys out of, so to do like dress up with little children, and instead I have bought it for the purpose of turning it into a poppet. These are a little bit more human-like. You can actually kind of sit them down and you can move the arms and the legs and stuff like that, which makes them really interesting to work with. I really like this style of dolly. I love its little arms as well, it's just so entertaining. So you can also find these little dollies. Often they come in craft stores, you can find them in kits or just stand alone, and they're really good for making more lifelike dolls. Particularly if you want a more long-term doll, these are really cute because you can dress them up in little clothes to match the person. You can give them hair if you wanted, you could paint them, give them facial features. You know, you can really do a lot with this style of doll. So that is the most popular form of doll currently, the fabric dolls. But you can make dolls out of almost anything. Some of the oldest dolls that have ever been found have been made out of clay. That's a really, really popular technique. People once upon a time used to go out and dig their own clay. A lot of people now obviously aren't able to do that, but you can buy clay from craft stores if you want to do that as well. People also make them out of wax. Paraffin wax is really, really easy to find. You can also make it out of soy wax or beeswax. If you have any leftover beeswax or just beeswax in general, it's soft enough to melt it in your hands to mold into a doll type shape. You can also use things such as corn dollies or husk dolls. These are commonly created around Imbolc for the goddess Brigid, but you can also just create them at any time and use them as dolls in your magical practice. You can also make dolls out of paper. There are so many different options when it comes to making a doll for a poppet or doll baby. Now, the type of material that you use to create your doll baby or poppet really depends on what you want to be using it for. So dolls can be used in so many different ways. Some people, especially practitioners, will create a doll of themselves. Now, when creating a doll for yourself, it's often used as a focus point during spell work and ritual. It gives you something to focus on your altar or in your working space to assist in manifesting your desired outcome. Now, if you frequently work on other people, whether that be your partner, your best friend, family members, for prosperity, good luck, happiness, joy, you know, those kind of things, you might want to create a doll for them and keep it as a long-term item that you then keep safe, wrapped up in a white or black cloth and kept in a box in a safe location as a form of protection when not in use. When you're creating this kind of doll, it's probably best to go for something that's a little bit more durable. So something like fabric is the best option for this. If you want to create a doll as a very temporary measure, or you want to create the doll in order to break it apart later, something like clay, wax, or corn is a really good option, as they are much easier to create really quickly, and also they can be destroyed really easily as well. Now, when you're creating a doll, the important thing is knowing what you're using it for. If you're using a doll to represent a person, you're going to want to create it in the form of that person with items known as taglocks. Now, a taglock is an item that will connect to magical working to a specific person. So things like nail clippings, hair, photographs, signatures, full names, date of births, and also items and objects that they have worn or that they have used are added inside a doll to attach it to the person you are creating the doll for. That means then that the doll acts as almost a duplicate version of the person. So when you're doing a working on the doll, it's attached to the person, and so whatever you are manifesting inside that doll manifests in the life of that person. Now, a lot of people get really scared about that. Don't worry, I'll get on to the idea of cursing and hexing later on in this video. So when you've added all the taglocks into that doll, you then seal it up. Now, in the case of dolls like these that we create, we actually have a zip in them so that they're really easy to stuff. Whereas some dolls, you're going to have to cut into them in order to stuff them with items. You can also create your fabric doll out of material that that person has worn. If you are making a fabric doll that needs stuffing of some kind, you can actually stuff it with material that they have owned. You can even stuff it with hair if you want to. Some people will stuff it with rice if they're doing it for kind of abundance workings. Other people will use teddy bear stuffing and then just fill the middle section with the taglock items. If you are going to be creating a wax or a clay doll, you can actually blend the items into the clay or the wax as you're creating it. So in which case you might want to use nail clippings, or you might want to use hair, small items that you can blend in to the wax or the clay as you're making it. And if you're making a corn dolly, you can put a small photograph of them inside the body of the doll as you are kind of creating it. So there's lots of different options with that. If you're creating a doll for a specific intention, so you want it to work on a person but for a very specific intention, so it's more of a temporary doll till you manifest that outcome, rather than a general doll that you will use repeatedly for multiple different intentions and then keep safe afterwards, you can add in items that represent your intention as well as all of the taglock items inside. So if you were creating a doll for love, you might want to stuff its body with rose petals, as well as adding in the taglocks. If you are stuffing a doll and you want it to manifest money, in there you might want to add in some blessed coins. You might want to add in some alfalfa. You might want to add in some prosperity rice, whatever it might be. So in a prosperity doll, you might actually want to stuff the entire body with prosperity rice if it's designed to help bring prosperity to the person the doll is attached to. If it is for healing, you might want to create a small healing poultice and place it inside the doll where they need healing. So if they need a speedy recovery from a broken ankle, you might want to fill the ankle section with a small poultice of healing herbs, and then that energy will help manifest in that very specific region of the body. So there's lots and lots of different options with this one. And this is largely where I need to mention about the pins, because pins and dolls nowadays, they kind of go hand in hand. That largely comes from media and movies misportraying dolls and magical practice, especially in the 60s, 70s, 80s, early 90s. They had a really bad time misportraying witchcraft and other magical systems. So pins and dolls have gone hand in hand, and they do go hand in hand, but not in the I am going to curse thee, stab kind of technique. It's not really for that. Instead, the basis is that the pin works a lot like an athame or a wand. They are used to pinpoint energy into a specific location. So if you are creating a doll for health, so you are sewing a doll and you are thinking of the healing that you want to manifest as you are creating it. You've then added in the taglocks, most of the stuffing. You've added in the healing poultice into the ankle. When you are done with the doll and you have finished sewing it up, you may then want to pinpoint where you want that healing to manifest. So you've put those herbs in the foot section. You then take a pin, you charge it with your energy and you push it through the doll, through the poultice, and then sometimes often into a wall to keep it secure. And then that energy is being focused in that point where you've pushed that pin. Now, a lot of people will say, oh, well, you're trying to hurt them by doing that. When in reality, most of the time, it's not what the pin is for. The pin is to focus that energy onto a specific point rather than that energy being directed around the entire body of the doll. So if you want to do a working to help your friend heal from a broken heart, some people might put a small heart on the outside of the doll, and inside they might put some rose petals in that one section. And then they might push a pin into that section to pinpoint where they want the healing to be. They don't want the healing to be all over. It might be that they are fine physically and they're fine mentally, but they're struggling with the fact that they've lost someone that they really loved. Maybe that's a sudden breakup or a cheating incident, whatever it might be. So you might then push a pin through that area to pinpoint what it is that you want to be healed, or what it is that you in particular want to help. Now, pins and dolls can be used to cause harm to other people. Of course, it's another form of magical practice. I'll never understand why people believe that some forms of magical practice are evil and some aren't, when the basis of it is energy and intention, and dolls are no different. If you can heal with a doll, you can also harm with a doll. Same goes for everything. Electricity can heal by powering machines that keep people alive. They can also harm by powering things like electric chairs. Same applies to all magical practices. If it can heal, it can harm. And as far as I'm concerned, it's important to be aware of that balance. Even if you aren't going to harm anyone with a doll, I still feel it's important to mention it in this section that you can do harm with a doll, just like you can do harm with a candle working or with a sachet working or with powders. So when it comes to dolls, you can also use them to inflict negativity onto a person's life. Now, I want to make it very clear here that if you create a doll in the representation of a person you don't like, and then you break their arm isn't actually going to break. That's not how it works. Although sometimes I think a lot of us would wish that was how it works. Instead, you can use it to inflict more negativity within their life. So if you want, you can fill a doll, fill it with negative herbs, poisonous herbs. You can fill it with thorns and spiky things to make them feel really uncomfortable and irritated and have a lot of discomfort around them. You can use it to mess with a specific aspect of their life. So if you know that they are a singer, you can always put that irritation in the throat region to help it manifest within the life of that person. Now, I'm not going to go too deep into the things you can do with dolls, but as I said earlier, if you can heal with a doll, you can hurt with a doll. So I'll let your imagination go there, although don't take it quite so literally. So the idea is, with all forms of magic, they are an assistant to life, not a fix-all. So just like if you are doing a doll to help heal a broken heart, the person that you're trying to do the working on also needs to be attempting to heal themselves. If you are doing a healing working on a broken ankle, if that person is attempting to run around and play football with a broken ankle and they're wondering why it's not healing, there's not much more you can do for them. They have to be willing to help themselves. The same goes for cursing. Sometimes people will have strong protections up. They will be doing things actively to limit the potential chance of a curse or negativity happening. And because of that, you're not always going to see the same results. You're not always going to see it in the same intensity. So just as it takes a lot of factors to heal and to help, it also takes a lot of factors to curse and harm. And honestly, I feel as though dolls have a really bad reputation that they don't deserve. Dolls are one of the oldest forms of magical practice, and they are honestly one of the most amazing forms of magical practice. They have lived in thousands of years worth of humans all across the globe, and some bad press in movies is not going to be enough to stop some of us from using them. So dolls can be used as standalone magical items. So if you want to protect someone, you might make a version of them in black, for instance, because black is a very protective, shielding colour. You might then add in items that represent them, as well as protections in there as well. You might then choose to wrap your doll in a white or black cloth and keep it in a safe, well-padded shoebox under your bed to help keep them safe and secure, so that the energy that you're putting on the doll, that protective, positive energy, is going to manifest in their life. That is one form of a standalone working. You can also use dolls on altars. So if you are working with a deity, you can create a little idol of them in the form of a doll and use it on an altar. You can also use dolls as spirit homes. So if you have spirit roaming around that you want to give a little space to that is theirs, you can create a doll to act as a spirit vessel, a spirit home, if they choose to occupy it. And then you can give them offerings and you can treat them with respect while inside the doll. A lot of people do that with dolls as well. Some people, I love being able to switch through dolls, this is great. Some people will use dolls in addition to other workings. So if you're doing a working on yourself, hopefully soon I'm going to be showing you a cord cutting working with a doll. Hopefully that'll be coming out soon. But you can use dolls alongside other workings. So if a doll is used to represent yourself, you can add it into a working as a focus point that you can work on. So you can visualize yourself in the form of a doll, and then you can do workings as and where you need to on that doll. As long as that doll is attached onto you, you can then do workings on the doll to manifest within yourself. That's a really good technique with people who maybe struggle to do workings on themselves because they can't necessarily see themselves in the same way they would see another person. You can also use dolls that represent another person as representation in other workings. So you can be doing a ritual around a doll to represent a person that maybe can't be there. So if you want to do a healing spell, but that person isn't around physically to be healed, using a doll that represents them can be a really good way of doing it, because then you place the doll in the circle if you've created one, and you can do the ritual around the doll. And then the energy, the healing energy you've added into that doll begins to manifest in the life of that person, even if they're not around. So that's a really, really good option when it comes to dolls. You can also use them on long-term workings. So if you have a manifestation altar and you want to say manifest money, and you don't want money necessarily through a business, instead you want it to be through you being an artist. Say you're an artist and you are the business. The business isn't a company that you run with a bunch of employees, you are the business. You can then use a doll that represents you on a manifestation altar for money to assist in money coming through you in terms of your work. It's a really cool way of doing it. You can also do it on love altars. If you are working to help improve the love within a relationship, you can have two dolls, one representing you, one representing your partner, on a love altar all the time. And then as you're doing the working on that altar, it will assist in manifesting that within your life. That is another really interesting technique. Now, if you are doing workings on a doll that is meant to represent a person and you know their name, it's really good after you've created that doll to do a little activation on it. Now, not everyone does this, but I do think it's a really good way of doing it. Some people will undertake the creation of that doll, whether that be through sewing, whether that be through wax or clay or corn, whatever it might be, and then they will speak over the doll. I name you, and then the full name of the person that that doll is meant to represent. And some people will do that before they then continue on with the workings, because by giving it a name, they give it significance. Names are really important within magical practice. There are true names, there are given names, taken names, there are coven names. There's a reason that Rumpelstiltskin in fairy tale really liked names. They're really important. So by adding a name onto that doll of the person they represent, it's a really significant factor in attaching that onto them. And also, depending on which tradition you follow, some people will also choose to baptize a doll as a way of activating it. That is another technique that you can do if you are part of a tradition that does follow the idea of baptism. It can be a really significant step when it comes to creating a doll, if you are of a tradition that does utilize that within your practice. Hopefully there'll be videos on YouTube that do show that practice being done. I personally am not part of a tradition that does do that, so I don't feel as though I'm in the right place to be telling you about it or teaching you about it, but that is an option out there if that is part of your tradition. So in some cases, the doll might not be a long-term item. So what do you do if you no longer need a doll? Well, some dolls are much more easily destroyed than others. In fact, you might have actually created a doll for the purpose of destroying it. Some people will create clay dolls, paper dolls, even wax dolls for the purpose of getting rid of things. So they'll often include the destruction of the doll in the use of it, much like a sigil. So if you want to give someone a really good cleanse, and for you, fire is cleansing. You want to burn something out of someone. You want to get rid of that toxicity. You might want to create a wax doll. And you will then Carve into that doll what it is that you want to remove from the individual, and you will then melt it away. And by the destruction of the doll, you might manifest that within the life of that person. If you want someone to leave you alone, to go away, you might use a paper doll, write on it what it is you want to achieve, as well as include their full name, date of birth, and you might then wash it down a river. Now, paper, as long as it's not, coloured, dyed, synthetically produced paper, will biodegrade really, really quickly. So by washing it away, you are washing them out of your life, and its destruction is the purpose of that doll. If it's a clay doll and it's not fired, it will liquidate in water. And so if you want to wash something out of someone or wash something away, or that's the way you find cleansing works best for you, you might want to create a clay doll with items inside it. You can then carve into it before it goes hard, and then you can slowly let all of that toxicity just liquefy out of that doll as it disintegrates. And that, in essence, is how you might use one of the clay dolls. So there are lots and lots of options like that. You can also bury the natural dolls, so things like clay, things like paper, things like corn, you can bury them as part of that working. So if you want to get rid of a doll, not just for the purpose that it was created for, but actually to dispose of it because you don't need it anymore, what do you do? Well, with a lot of items, you can bury them. By returning it back to the earth, you essentially nullify the energy. You allow it to just break down into the dirt. But please only do this with natural items that will break down. So natural materials, fine. With clay, cool. Corn, fine. Wheat, that's good too. Paper, that's fine as long as it's natural. If it's beeswax, you can do that too because it's a natural product, it's not toxic. But if you are using unnatural materials, if you are using any kind of paraffin wax, it's best not to bury it in the ground. And a lot of people can't bury things in the ground anyway, so what are your other options? Well, a good option is to just cleanse a doll and then dismantle it. Especially when it comes to dolls like this, because we include a zip in them, you can take them apart without having to fully destroy them. But what I do with my dolls is I will cleanse the doll. I will thank it for its assistance in the workings that have been undertaken. I will cleanse the doll, usually with smoke. I will then either, if it's a doll that doesn't have a zip in it, I will pick the edges apart, take the doll apart. I will take the taglocks and other items inside out. I will cleanse them again, and then I will place them in a bin. If I'm using one of these dollies, which has a handy little zip in it, I will unzip the doll, take the items out, cleanse them, and then dispose of them, cleanse the doll again, and then I can go on and use it for different workings. If you are making a clay doll or a wax doll, and you're not really sure what to do with it, if you thank it for its assistance, cleanse all of that energy out of it, you can then dispose of it by washing it away. You can bury it, you can put it in a bin. If you have created a wax doll, you can melt it or place it in a bin. Just make sure you've cleansed and thanked that doll before you do it. Now, it's slightly different if you've created a doll for a spirit or if you've created a doll for a deity. That's really all going to depend on the interactions you have with that deity and the spirit itself. If the spirit has vacated the doll, you can then cleanse the doll and use it as you see fit. Or you can dismantle the doll, break it down, bin it, bury it, whatever it might be that you're doing with it. If it's for a deity, it really entirely depends on the deity and whether they have decided they don't like the doll anymore, whether they've decided they don't want it on the altar anymore, so on, so on. If a spirit is still resident within the doll, you're either going to need to get the resident spirit to vacate or find another suitable housing for that spirit that can act as a replacement. So that is another option. Besides that, it really all depends on your interactions with the spirit. You're going to have to take it up with them, unfortunately. I can't really give you much more advice than that because it really all depends on the type of spirit, why it's there, how long the agreement was for. You know, all the standard things when you have a spirit letting out a doll, you know, those kind of things. So that is kind of a very brief rundown on dolls. I'm hoping to do some more workings with dolls in the future so you can really see the different techniques for making them. So I'm hoping to show you how to make a wax doll, how to make a corn doll, how to make a clay doll, that kind of thing, as well as show you some workings that you can do with them, because honestly they are such tactile, tangible items to use. They're fantastic. Now, shameless self-plug here, but if you would like to get one of my dolls that we create, we do them through the website. Now, all of our dolls are handmade. We can do them in basically any colour that you want. We can do them in white, dark pink, pale purple, dark purple, pale blue, pale green, dark green, like almost literally every colour that you can think of. We can even do it so that the two different sides are different colours if you wanted. And we do them with zips in them so that you can easily reuse all of your dolls. If you do want to get one of our hand-sewn dolls, they are available through our website. I'll put a link to it down in the description box if you do want to get them. And these can be shipped abroad, so if you do live internationally and I don't normally ship out to you, if you send me an email, we can get these sent out to you, because they are just little fabric dolls, and some of them, like this one, has pockets, because I sell these in little kits, so we can do like pockets and stuff if you want to keep things inside there as well. Okay, shameless self-plug over with. The dolls, I love them, hence why I'm plugging them, because these are the dolls I use myself. Above all other dolls, these style, the ones that we create, are my absolute favourite. So, thank you guys so much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, feel free to give it a like. It really means so much to me. If you do have any questions, comments, concerns, video ideas, or just want to chit chat with the community down in the comment section, feel free to post a comment. And if you do enjoy the magical content on this channel or in this video, feel free to hit subscribe. I do try my best to post magical content every Wednesday and every Saturday at 6 p.m. So I hope you guys are staying safe. I hope you have a marvelous magical day, and I will see you in the next video. Bye!